PSB, proud sponsors of About the House.
In this episode, I'll be looking at some smaller projects to inspire anyone looking to improve the space they're in. And I'll be examining the issues arising with more cost-effective forms of wall insulation and looking at what solutions are out there. Many of the projects we follow are often ambitious, large-scale undertakings. New builds and big renovations have characterised previous series of About the House. But for most people, embarking on a big extension or building a whole new house is just not an option. But it doesn't mean that you can't have the house you've always wanted. There are lots of smaller things you can do in your house to make a big difference. It's all about rethinking your home and seeing how it can be rearranged. And coming up with creative solutions that can create new or additional purposes for a space. In this episode, we'll be looking at 3 separate projects, showing smaller ways of improving the home and working with the space we have, as well as a way of making your house warmer and more comfortable on a budget. The first project in this episode takes me to Rathgar in South Dublin, to a family that had managed to successfully maximise their existing space. Anne Ronan and their children had been living in their Victorian house for almost 10 years, before deciding to turn it into their ideal family home.
When we bought the house, it's a beautiful old house, but it wasn't very suitable to family living. So we had a dining room upstairs, we had a kitchen downstairs, we had little nooks and crannies all over the house. We had a tiny little box room upstairs that my little son had to use, and the house basically didn't flow, it didn't really come together.
She also outlined their reasons for wanting to renovate.
We decided as the children got a little older that they needed some more room, and we wanted a lovely family room downstairs and we wanted a kitchen. Many people in the neighbourhood have taken a house, and because the basement is inclined to be dark and pokey and full of small little rooms, the easiest solution might be to put a large extension onto the back. But what we observed was that people then didn't use the middle story of the house very much, and they all moved out into the extension. So we were determined not to do that. And we were going to work with the house and see how much living space we could actually carve out of the existing house. 4 or 5 years ago, we met Gwen Kenny and we asked her, would she come into this room and give us a classic design that wouldn't age? And the room is as beautiful now as the day she finished it.
Gwen Kenny is an interior designer who's been helping people renovate the interiors of their homes for the last 18 years. Gwen told me some more about what the kitchen area was like when she first saw it.
Initially, the space in the basement was 2 rooms. This particular room was a bedroom stroke office, and the room at the back then was a dining room with part of the kitchen in it. Most of the kitchen was in the utility room. The brief for this room was light, 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 light and more light, because it was really, really dark, and the areas were quite small and gave a feeling of being small.
First, Gwen's team set about transforming the kitchen dining area. And her first suggestion initially seemed quite controversial.
So when we suggested to Anne lowering the ceilings to put recessed lighting in, she was dubious to the fact that I was going to make it look lower. But in fact it doesn't. It makes the room much brighter and opens it all up completely. Because we've knocked the 2 rooms together as a dual aspect now, so we've light source from outside from both ends of the room as well, which works really, really well. The house functions as a great living area now in the kitchen, because there's the work triangle, which is basically the 3 things you use most in the kitchen, which is the cooker, the sink and the fridge. And there should be a triangle between the 3 of them, so you can do absolutely everything in 2 seconds flat, and it's an awful lot easier.
And Gwen made use of the original features to enhance the kitchen even more.
The kitchen that I'm in now had a fireplace in it with a chimney that we worked around, so we had great fun with that because there was recesses on either side, and we've actually built in extra deep presses into that and sliding doors and all sorts of things that work really well that you don't actually see. The microwave is totally recessed into one of them as well. And then we put the cooker in front of the fire and used the chimney then for extra ventilation.
They also installed some special custom-made handles with matching splashback. The kitchen and dining area were now spacious, light-filled places in which the family could live in together. And the children were very happy with their bedrooms as well.
I decided on kind of the idea, like, you know, the green and all the, I don't know, different things to put in, but Gwen came up with a lot of it, and just, she did a fantastic job, really.
The bedroom now is much better because I can actually, you know, walk around. And it's just really, really good.
I picked the curtains, and I wanted the fairy lights around my room. I'd picked them out and everything, but them wrapped around the curtain wasn't really my idea. It looked amazing though.
The other part of the house that Gwen transformed was the lower hall.
The lower hall was transformed because we added panelling to it and then smoked mirrors in between the panelling as well. It gave a real lift to the room and actually added to the height of it as well. And then we lit the area really, really well with a huge plaster light that actually has the constellation of the plough involved in it, so it looks really, really well.
And the TV room next to the hall was given a whole new life, from a small little space to a large entertainment area. There was no doubt which was the kids' favourite room.
Games room, definitely. You know, we just like literally could spend all my time.
We do spend all our time in here.
It's amazing. If my friends and me are in the house, we're always here. You know, there's nowhere really else like this.
So Gwen transformed this Victorian house so that the interior was just as beautiful as the exterior.
The whole idea that we had was to use the space in this beautiful house and maximise the charm and the beauty of it. And I think that that is really what we have done. And it is amazing if you approach a building project from that point of view, what you can actually do with the space that you've already got.
Whilst not everyone will have so much space to play with, the principles of working with what you have can be applied to smaller homes as well. You just need to think creatively. When we're in our homes, we want to be warm and comfortable. But everyone has bills to pay and energy costs are just getting higher. So effective wall insulation is something that many of us are now very keen to have in our homes. But retrofitting walls can be difficult, not to mention expensive. Although disruptive, by far the most common option when retrofitting walls, when you want to achieve a high level of insulation, is dry lining internally. However, if not installed correctly, condensation can build up behind the dry lining. This trapped dampness can severely weaken the structure of your house through decay and result in your insulation becoming less effective, but also create mould growth conditions. Joseph Little is an architect and insulation specialist. He's been conducting some research into what happens when condensation is allowed to build up within a dry lining system, causing the structure to weaken and mould to build up. So what's the building science, Joe, in all of this? What's happening?
If you look at a wall like this, for instance, this is a very simple example. We've outside conditions here, we've inside on this side. This is like a section that we're looking through it. Let's say that's the original render, the original wall, and maybe there's original sand cement plaster there, and we've got some type of insulation. Now, we need to think about what's affecting this wall. We've got temperature differences between here and here. Maybe it's 0 degrees outside, so we'll just put that in there. Maybe it's 20 degrees inside, 19 or 20 degrees there. We've also got driving rain. So maybe we've got driving rain hitting the wall here, and they say about 30% bounces off, but about 70% of that begins to affect the wall, adds to the moisture load on this side. Inside, somebody may be drying clothes in a bedroom, which obviously isn't ideal, or it could be a wet room. All the time we're breathing, we're sweating out vapour. And so there's a moisture load on in the room as well. And that has an effect. And some of that just kind of gets dispersed again by the ventilation system. Some of that goes into the wall. So you've different types of pressure and you've different types of temperature. And this one wall is dealing with all of those things. So there's a condition on this side and a condition on this side.
Behind the insulation on the original wall, the temperature drops 16 degrees Celsius to only 4 degrees. If there is no airtight membrane on the warm side of the insulation, this allows vapour-laden air to diffuse towards the cold surface and saturate at dew point. In many dry lining systems, this moisture has nowhere to dissipate to and mould builds up. So how are we meant to find ways of insulating our home on a budget without causing possible dangers to our health? After the break, I meet Tony Farrell, who might just have found a solution. And I go to meet a homeowner in Dundrum, who's found a creative solution to working from home.
ESB, proud sponsors of About the House. ESB, proud sponsors of About the House.
I'm at the home of Tony Farrell in Portmarnock. Tony is having an extension built to his house and has found a new way of dry lining that is hoping to tackle the problems that are associated with it. Tony, I believe you're looking for a good dry lining system for your extension here. Have you found one?
We have, yeah. We started out from a situation where we didn't really know very much about building. So we got in a heating engineer and he looked at our existing building and he gave us a rating, a BER rating on the building, and we then asked him for advice on this new extension. And I said to him, I don't want to be coming back to this in 10 years' time. So I said, give me a good level of insulation, because putting it in now is going to be a lot cheaper than trying to put it in 10 years' time.
Absolutely, like 1/10 of the cost if you do it this way.
He went away, drew up a document with spec on it, and I gave the document to James Howard and I said, make that happen.
I went to meet James to find out more about the method he was using.
Hello, Duncan.
Good to see you.
Pleased to meet you.
Tony mentioned to me that you found a good solution here now for dry lining.
It's an insulation that overcomes a lot of the problems that have been associated with internal dry lining for many years.
So can you tell us about the insulating board?
The insulating board itself comprises of 4 layers, and in the board there's 60 millimetres of rigid insulation with a foil in between on the front of it. There's 11 millimetres of OSB, 25 millimetres of foil back insulation again, and 12 millimetres of plasterboard to the front.
So what's the purpose now of the oriented strand board here, the Smart Ply?
It acts as the air tightness layer within the room. When this job is completed, the OSB layer, when it's taped together, forms a continuous airtight membrane throughout all the walls in the room.
James also has an ingenious way of dealing with services.
All the services are integrated into the board back in the factory. The 25 millimetres of insulation is the layer in which we integrate all those services into. So the conduits for the electric cables, the radiator pipes are all integrated at that point. And the homeowner just needs to tell us where they want those items in the house, and we integrate them into the board to suit those positions.
The U value on the dry lining on Tony's extension is 0.22, but it's very easy to enhance this system to bring a house down to passive standards if required. James also explained how his system gets around the problems of condensation build-up and mould.
We have had an independent test done by BRE which states that there's an insignificant risk of vapour getting through the board, so therefore there will be no problems like that behind the board. Because we've got an air tightness layer, but we also have a vapour control layer as well, we can be sure that there isn't condensation forming behind the boards.
So it seems like this dry lining system gets around a lot of the problems created by older forms of dry lining. I asked Tony what it was that made him decide to go for it in the first place.
We were looking for 4 things. We were looking for to eliminate the drafts. We were looking for a high level of insulation. And the insulation board, we wanted to be able to mount things on it, like kitchen presses, TV, pictures and so on. And the 4th thing was it needed to be cost effective. So we think that the EasyBoard solution is actually giving us those 4 things.
Wall insulation systems like this seem to have solved most of the problems that we've been having with conventional dry lining systems to date. Systems like this can be a great help to people on a budget who want to make their house more efficient. The last project in this episode takes me to the heart of Dundrum. Over the last 10 years, Dundrum has had a serious makeover. It has been transformed from a sleepy old village to a 21st century town. Even now, there's a clear juxtaposition of old and new when you walk through the town. Along with the shopping centre, there are new housing developments that have sprung up as well. And it's one of these that I'm visiting. I'm here to meet Annette Mahan, who runs her own business and works primarily from home.
I moved back to Ireland 10 years ago. I'd lived in New York for 20 years. I set up my own business a year ago. I'm a marketing consultant and I work with clients in Dublin and in various parts of the country. Most of the time I'm actually based at home.
So where do you work when you're at home?
I usually work from my dining room table, or sometimes I sit on my couch with my laptop on my lap, but it just is not convenient because I'm getting up and down then to pick up documents.
So what are you trying to do specifically?
I want to have an office in my home, but I just don't know where to put it. I have limited space. I only have 2 bedrooms. So I've asked Karen, who's an interior designer, to come in and have a look at it, and hopefully she will come up with a creative solution.
Karen O'Rourke, Annette's interior designer, has a challenge ahead of her now. She needs to magic some space out of Annette's compact flat to create a home office without losing any of the existing rooms. Karen gets to work figuring out what to do.
The project for Annette is just really beginning. So I've taken a trip over, taken measurements of all her apartment, and now we're trying to reconfigure her storage in the whole apartment. We're trying to condense it and free up an area to give her an office.
And Karen finds a creative solution to the problem. She has found a way of keeping Annette's spare bedroom whilst turning it into an office. She's going to put the office in her wardrobe. Karen has employed the services of joiner Eugene MacDonald to make her design. First, he dismantles the existing wardrobe to make way for the office. Then he gets to work making the various elements in his workshop before they can be transported to Annette's flat. Once there, he and his assistant, Chico, get to work assembling it. I came to meet Karen as the finishing touches were being put in the office to find out how she came up with the idea.
Hello. Karen.
Oh, hi, Duncan. Hi, how are you?
Pleased to meet you, Karen. There was a big bed here the last time I was here.
That's right. Now we have a nice little neat bed settee, because Annette does want to keep it as a bedroom.
So where's the office? It's the wardrobe.
No, what was the wardrobe?
So she can work here now. If she's got a computer, how can she work?
Annette works on a laptop.
Right.
So this can be for her, but it's also giving her extra desk space here. Here we have all our shelves, our sort of in and out trays. We have all our file boxes here. This can be for a monitor if Annette decides later on maybe to add a monitor instead of a laptop. So we have our cork board here. And then further down here we have our printer. All the wiring you can see is all in the back, and here's all our electrical sockets. And at the end of the day, this can come out, these come out, and we just put back in the rails. So if Annette suddenly has a guest over the weekend, the wardrobe is still there, and we have our bed and our bed settee.
So how much does it cost?
This one I think is working out at about €1,600.
So have you made many of these?
No, this is the first one, but I'm hoping to make many more because I think this is the future of people working at home.
All that remain now were for the last remaining parts to be added to the office. With this done and Annette's files and computer put into it, it was ready for her to begin using. Annette, the last time I was here, this was the place you had to work, but now you've got your office. How's it all worked out?
It has worked out very well for me because it means I still have my bedroom when I have guests staying, and I have a professional home office, and I have a separation between work and between home. And what I think a lot of people, when they have a home office, it ends up being a makeshift home office. It's something that evolves, whereas I think having somebody come in, professionally taking a look at it, evaluating what you need, it's well worth it.
Was it good value for money?
I think it was worth every penny, given the benefits that I'm going to get for this.
How long did it take to do it, by the way?
Overall, from start to finish, from initial concept, it took about 2 weeks.
Thanks to Cairn's solution, Annette has now a space she can call her office without losing the vital function of her spare room. Whilst Annette already worked from home before she had her office installed, making the decision to cut out the commute can really save you a lot of time and money. More and more, we'll be seeing smaller jobs like this taking place in people's homes. Not everyone has a big house to renovate, but we're learning that you don't necessarily need one in order to have more space. These projects have really shown me that by being creative, it is possible to make completely new spaces in your home without adding to its size. Whatever your reason, whether you can't expand or just don't want to, you can still completely transform your home. Next week, we follow a brave couple taking an ancient settlement of stone buildings and bringing them back to life, one house at a time. If you're interested in being featured in our next series of About the House, particularly if you've been creative with the space you have, please fill in an application form on our website.
ESB, proud sponsors of About the House.